Earth Warp by Mary Hoffman. Chapter 1. It Came from Outer Space. 100 years ago, South Beach was one of the prettiest places in England. Green fields, clean beaches, sparkling streams. It was the last place on Earth that an ordinary fisherman would have expected to see a visitor from outer space. And thank goodness he didn't. But it was there, all the same. Some sort of probe from hundreds of light years away. It landed in a stream near South Beach and settled there quietly for the next century. Those 100 years brought a lot of changes to South Beach. Traffic, buildings, pollution. So it was a very different stream that the two friends Jenny and Amina were walking beside one day in early summer. "It's disgusting," said Amina. She felt very strongly about things like people throwing their rubbish into rivers. She felt strongly about Martin Rowlands, too. She wouldn't go so far as to call him disgusting, but he was certainly no friend of hers, and now he suddenly turned up, spoiling her walk with Jenny. Jenny went up to Martin, who seemed to be feeling ill, but he was as unfriendly as ever. "I don't need your help," he snapped. But Jenny wouldn't give up. She made Amina walk back with him to his home. And so the two girls left the stream without seeing the strange red light start to glow in its murky waters. Martin lived in the Burlington Hotel on the promenade. It was only a small hotel, but the girls thought he was dead lucky. His mum ran the hotel. Mrs. Rowlands took one look at Martin and knew he was having one of his asthma attacks. "It's the traffic," she told her friend Sarah brightly. "You could write about traffic fumes." Sarah was a journalist for the local paper, the South Beach Gazette. Jenny couldn't believe her luck. Secretly, she wanted to be a reporter when she grew up, and this was her chance to speak to a real journalist. But Martin made it clear that he didn't want the girls to stay. There weren't many people staying at the hotel. Business was bad, and it wasn't helped by a new mystery illness that had turned up in South Beach. No one knew what it was, but lots of people had it, particularly children. Even Miss Grant wondered whether it was safe to stay, and she was one of the few guests left at the Burlington Hotel. And if she went, her friend Mrs. MacDonald would probably go too. Martin didn't know how bad things were. He liked to shut himself up in his room and look at the sky through his telescope. Nothing seemed very important when he realized how big the universe was. He was stargazing that evening when the chef brought him some dinner. Chef was a good friend, really, but he was always playing tricks on Martin. So, when Martin suddenly got excited and said he could see a spaceship, Chef thought he was just getting his own back. "You were having me on," he said. "There's nothing there." But Martin had seen something. Still, both Chef and his mum thought he was making it up. He got very angry and wished it was men from Mars. "It'll show you!" he shouted. A bit later, when Miss Grant and Mrs. MacDonald were having their dinner, everyone saw the spaceship, only they didn't know what it was. There were dazzling lights over the sea, and then it disappeared. It was all over very quickly, and only Martin realized that it must be the ship he'd seen through his telescope. Everyone rushed out of the hotel. The street was full of people gazing at the sea. It seemed as if everyone Martin knew was there. Sarah Brightly was on the spot with her notebook. Jenny and Amina were on their way home from the cinema. Then suddenly, Martin noticed Mr. Belcher. It wasn't the spaceship that had brought him to the promenade, though. Mr. Belcher was looking for Mrs. Rowlands. Martin was uneasy. He knew that Belcher had been pestering his mother to sell the hotel. Jenny knew who Mr. Belcher was, too. Her dad worked for him in his chemicals factory near the beach. Amina didn't trust him. She thought the tide might be bringing pollution up into the stream from the sea near Belcher's factory. A policeman came along and tried to send everyone away. "There's nothing to worry about," he said. "It was a sudden electrical storm. You can all go home." Martin and the two girls were the last to leave. The girls thought Martin knew something about the storm, but they all gave up and went away in the end. And so no one saw what walked out of the sea. And even if they had, they wouldn't have known what on earth it was.